welcome Chelsea fans, and welcome to the first edition of Tactical Thursdays. And this is something new that Chelsekaaran is trying. We're trying to branch out into English content and English content creation. And as a part of this, what we'll have is regular streams on a variety of topics. So we'll have streams on tactical discussions. We'll have streams on transfers and multiple other things, all things Chelsea. And for the first stream, what we've chosen is a tactical breakdown of Chelsea. And I am Akash Hebar. I'm a member of the Chelsekaaran group, and today with us to discuss Chelsea's open play creativity issues amongst other things, we have CFC Central with us. Central, welcome to the stream. And we also have Sean Mobalaji uh, and Aspin, who is a fellow Chelsea Karen as well. So welcome to the stream, guys, and thank you so much for joining in. And
Thank you, bro.
I'll let Central go first. So, for those people who don't follow, CFC Central on Twitter, you're missing out on a lot. He's one of the most, positive analysts that I've met, and he has a unique way of looking at the sport with zero negativity, and always pointing out the positives of players. And it is definitely a lot of fun talking football with him. So, thank you so much, Central, for taking the time out to talk to us. And thank
No,
you
no,
for joining.
absolutely. It's completely my pleasure, and props to you for doing this. I mean, being an Indian content creator in the Chelsea space, obviously something for me to be personally also very proud about. So, props for keeping the Indian flag flying high, if I may say that. So, well done.
Sure, bro. And all the way from Nigeria, we have Sean Mobalaji joining in as well. And again, for people who don't follow Sean, I've been connected with him for over 2 years, and we bonded over a thread that he wrote about, Lampard's tactical philosophy, and we've sort of taken it from there. Again, great analyst, has nothing bad to say about anyone in the sport, which is very rare on Twitter, and a really, really good friend. So welcome, Sean, to the stream as well. Sean, I think you're on mute. If Am I audible? You're on mute, bro. I think you'll have to.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Akash. It's nice to be on the stream with you guys. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully,
I think Sean's run into a bit of internet trouble. Yep, you're back. Cool then. And we have Aspin as well, one of my favorite people to
oh,
talk football with. Very active member of the Chelsea Current Society. And yep, thank you, Aspin, for joining in. Welcome to the stream. And yep, so probably let's start. I think a major, point of discussion that has been prevalent in Chelsea circles for the last year has been, our issues with open play creativity, right? So there is City, then there's Liverpool, and then there's this huge gulf in the amount of chances that we create, and also open play XG and multiple other metrics. So I'll start with this question to Central. What do you think is the root cause for our lack of creativity? And do you think it's a systemic issue, or do you think we're missing out on certain profiles or personnel in the squads?
I think it would be fair to sort of attribute it to a mix of factors, to be honest. The most important one being that we lost the two players who are afforded the most space in our system. So, Ben Chilwell and Reece James were out for like prolonged periods during the last season. And I think that really, really hurt us in many ways, especially the right hand side. I would say Alonso did an okay job when he was going into the final third and trying to pull out those signature runs at the back post and trying to score from those positions. But we really, really missed Reece James and his creativity and his threat on the right hand side. So when I look at the numbers, I don't think there is anything to be predominantly worried about. We've, I think, outperformed both our expected goals as well as our expected assists, both of them, which tends to say that we are efficient, but whatever we are creating is still, like you said, we are still way off the top two. So are we missing certain profiles? I would say yes. I would say that a certain amount of risk needs to be taken for us to bridge that gap between where we are and to say a Manchester City or a Liverpool. And yeah, I think the people that we're linked with sort of tend to give us that kind of added impetus to go and do it. But what signings we supplement in midfield and try to cover the gaps or the threats that Tuchel is probably anticipating, I think will be key. But overall, I think we've done well. Everything taken into perspective, the final, I think, like last 2 3 months of the season, when fatigue kicked in, when players were just coming back, not match fit, and I think everything considered, we did pretty well.
Makes sense. And again, a trademark central, it's a very positive way of looking at it. And I think I agree with a lot of points that you've made. I'll direct this next question to Sean again. And I think Central raised a very pertinent point when he said, when we missed out on Reece James and Chilwell for, major portions of the season, right? We did miss out on a lot of creativity. As in our right flank, I think all the creativity did come from Reece James and his ability to either cut inside, invert, and play, a little bit more central, or go on the overlap and deliver those crosses that he's famous for. So next season, what do you think will be the modus operandi, or what Tuchel will have in mind specific to wing backs? Do you think he'll stick to three, or do you think we'll go four at the back and then have two traditional fullbacks playing? So, Sean, I think you're on mute again. Yep, you're on
Okay.
mute. Yep, it's good now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So concerning Tuchel's plans, to be honest, when he came in, we know Tuchel said discussed his plans on the flight with his assistants and all, and based on the style of play based on the players we had then, and it's still the case now because a lot of the players, the midfielders, the defenders are largely the same. So it will be interesting the way Tuchel will want to go this summer, especially with Christensen and Rudiger leaving. Two defenders that, even though I can vouch for them in the four at the back, but they suit the three at the back system much better. So this summer, it depends. It depends on the targets we get at center back, and also depends if we get DM. But so if we do get a Kunde and maybe a Delict or Koulibaly to maybe fill in Rudiger's space, then it will be interesting too. And I think you can, if we leverage on what Tuchel has used so far, we can say, okay, Reece James, right wing back, Chilwell, left wing back, and hopefully a Rice in midfield. Yeah, so if we get that done, Dembele out wide. So I think Tuchel's inverted wing back system we saw around October last year. It will be interesting to see how Tuchel also uses that, because Dembele is also a wide player and he can do what Cho did during that period on the right hand side. And when he does that, Rhys James can tuck in, and we know how dangerous Rhys James is when he tucks in at the right hand side. Then on the left, if Callum can do, if we use Callum could do the same, and it will be interesting to see the rotations and the combination play that we'll have there. So is feeling tasty a bit, right?
Exactly, like you mentioned. So a lot of things to look forward to. If you think of how an ideal Tuchel system would look like the next season, we can think of like multiple options and multiple combinations there. And it's exciting, but maybe the lack of transfer activity has us a bit deflated right now. So I'll direct the next question to Aspin again. And sort of along similar lines, we've played four at the back, but very sparingly. But when we've alternated between looking really good and a little, sort of vulnerable on the counter. Do you think we'll go four at the back next season? And if we do, what tweaks do you think Tuchel will make to the system there? So
Primarily speaking, I would say we will need a personal incoming to make that actually possible, because when you take extremely good forward back systems, either you need to have two number sixes playing with a great amount of coordination. And the latest example I can give at the moment is of West Ham, where our on target Declan Rice and Suchek are doing an excellent job, alternating between that holding mid role or the defensive mid role and the box to box role. Especially when you talk about Declan Rice this season, he has been seen going forward, going into that attack, rather than just sitting there being that sort of base of the attack. Rather than he has been pushing going forward, but the coordination between him and Sochak has been so good that whenever one guy goes forward, the other guy is always ready to go. So such a system would work, and it would be the type of system that I want to see working in a team like Chelsea. But of course, when you look at the top two teams in England, without doubt, Liverpool and Manchester City, both of them have systems having one strong holding DM who does his job so well, and that role being stopping attacks before it starts. Let it be doing technical fouls, let it be tackling the attack where it starts, let it be intercepting the key passes in the pitch by reading games. Fabinho and Rodri, and before that, Fernandinho has been doing an extremely good job of that. It is very evident when Klopp loses Fabinho and he has to, rest him because of his injuries and all. They have to work around the midfield and work around the defense and provide that extra cover that he often provides in the midfield. Same goes for Manchester City side as well without the lone mid. So, as I said, personal incoming is a huge factor that decides what setup will Tuchel set up for next season. Because when he did come in, we were facing a lot of defensive issues, and maybe against the first match we played under him against Wolves, we saw a very aggressive strategy with that kind of formation. Of course, he did go a bit mediocre with his defense after that, and then it sort of settled down, solidified, and that's what took us to our second UCL victory. But of course, it has been showing a lot of holes right now, and with a lot of personal departure, especially like the people, Rudiger, Aspilicueta, leading leadership, performing players that is leaving the club. It's hardball for Tuchel right now, and I'm expecting him, being the versatile manager he is. Of course, he's one of the most versatile managers in modern football. That once the personal dust comes in, he will tweak the system. There is no doubt about it. He will not be stubborn to make the 3-5-2 or the 3-4-3 that he usually employs work. He will not be stubborn to do that. So maybe he might have something in mind, but even if he does not get the personnel to get that particular system working, which maybe, as you said, a long DM system, back four system, so it might happen that he will employ a system with a back four or with a back three, but he will choose a system that is optimum for the personnel that is coming in and settling down in the next season.
Awesome. Again, that makes a lot of sense, And Central, I'll move on to the next, agenda item, and we'll probably go to the tactical board for this, one of my favorite parts. So I'm assuming you have access to it. So let me just share my screen. And you guys can let me know when it pops up.
Yeah, I can see you here. Can you move around something so I can confirm I'm on the same screen?
Can someone drop in the comments if they're able to see the tactics board right now? Aspin,
Yeah,
if you're looking.
It is visible, Habbar. You can continue. It is visible.
No, on
Yeah.
YouTube, the streamer is too, right? Okay, cool. So Central, my question right here is, I think in build-up, right? So what often happens is, we have this 3-2, which is sort of very evident when we are playing the 3-4-3. So we have these three center backs, and then we have two holding midfielders who sort of receive the ball from them and then play. And then sort of try to find people between the lines and then so on, right? So we have Jorginho and Kovacic doing that to varying degrees of success this season. But a lot of people have been calling for a 4-3-3, and if I remember correct, in PSG, what happened was, you would have ideally. So this is your winger, right? And so this is your back four. What you would have is your fullbacks bombing forward, and Thiago Silva and Presnel Kimpembe sort of playing wide, and then you would have people like Marquinhos dropping into, the center of defense, and then you would have the same sort of 3-2 in build-up. Do you think that is how Tuchel will go next season as well if we do switch to a 4, or do you foresee any changes in how we approach this, our approach on the ball?
I think
From here, sir.
Yeah, I think the 3-2 is something that he's now settled on. I think a lot of managers are now settled on the 3+2 formula in terms of build up, in terms of keeping a very stable base from which you can not just initiate but also defend. Because at the time when he was playing with Dortmund, he would keep Julian Weigl in front of his two, sometimes three center backs, and that tended to create a lot of issues when Dortmund used to get like caught on the counter. So I think he's learned from that. He said, okay, I might sort of take away a little bit of attacking dynamism and make sure that I have that 3+2 base to do. So I think this is the way to go forward. It's just I've always talked about balance. I've talked about who are these two guys in the middle of the park, and can they develop the kind of synergy that allows them to perform certain roles. Does one player take a certain responsibility and say, okay, I'm going to be the disciplined one and I'm going to sit and let the other person dictate play? Then great. Then you've got a great synergy in that duo that is sitting in the middle of the park. You know, there was a great point made earlier before about Suchek and Rice sort of doing that for West Ham. You know, you've got two technically, I would say, almost box to box players. I wouldn't want to call Rice a box to box player, but he does tend to go very, very high up, and Cresswell sort of moves up to the left hand side. He almost goes to the edge of the box sometimes. And then Suchek sort of like makes sure that he's the guy who's sitting behind. But at other times, Suchek will go into the box because he's great in the air, and Rice will sit to try and recover the ball. So that profile to make sure that we have a stable base is, I think, Tuchel's way to go forward. He hasn't. I don't think any of the duos that we've used this season have been able to do that often enough. But yeah, I mean, Jorginho, Kovacic, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, it just lacks a certain bit of discipline. It lacks a certain bit of, you know, after you lose the ball, how are you going to get the ball back? How are you going to recycle it? When you look at the league table in terms of recoveries for per 90 minutes, you will see Rodri up there, second in the league. You will see Thiago Alcantara, I think, is fourth in the league. Fabinho is somewhere in the top 15. And then our first midfielder is Jorginho, who's at like 44th. So you've obviously got issues there in terms of somebody being able to recover it quickly and then recycle it. So can we get that person in there to make sure that we've got that defensive security? I think that's going to be the priority going forward.
Oh wow, that 44th was definitely a surprise for me, right? Uh, and Sean, I think Central made a lot of valid points in how there will be additional focus on winning the ball back and sort of recycling it faster. But would you argue that the same issue persists? That right now we attack with five, but if we switch to a four, how Tuchel wants his team to play will sort of mean we attack with the same five, right? So, do you think the system in itself will change how we attack, or do you foresee more of the same? And do you think additional personnel is required to sort of make the 4-3-3 effective as well? And yep, I'll let you make you have complete access to the tactic boards. Take it away for sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. So for the 3-2 build up, I think I've always said this. After the Juventus game, right? The Juventus game that we drew, now that we lost 1-0, that the way we move the ball and the positions of our wing backs, the fact that our wing backs aren't wingers that can take on opposition fullbacks really limit us a lot. And because they could just get wide, get the ball to them wide, and they can just turn back because they can't dribble. Right? Chilwell will get the ball wide and he'll take the ball back. So if you see on the tactics board, so Chilwell gets into these positions, and because he's doubled up on, especially when they understood Tuchel's system, because they know that Tuchel's system is all about, the three at the back is all about creating overloads in wide areas, right? So Rhys James comes here. Let's say Mounts is around here. Let's just put this 4 here. Mount is around here. So everyone understood this, and Juventus really stifled us here because, especially with Lukaku is in fluid, right? Lukaku won't come like Havertz to come and also
Exactly.
create
Yeah.
his own overloads at the wide areas. So Lukaku just stays here. So Juventus just blocked the central areas to him, and that was all. Nothing else. We couldn't create. And the fact we had ZH, who isn't really dynamic like that, if you put in dynamism in the winger, and have it by the side, so we couldn't do a lot. So if I could put, instead of the two wing backs wide, that's why I loved the inverted wing back system. It puts Callum wide here. Chilwell started making runs from deep. So Callum could really start taking on players. So the wingers could really push back the other defenders and create space and also make their own rotations. Sometimes Callum comes in, Chilwell goes out, but it was not just stationary, it was constant movement. So in my own system, if I want to make a 4-3-3 system with this build up with the three, so I'll put currently we don't have any left CB. Let me use
Yep.
okay,
We can go with
Cole.
Colville, I think.
Yeah,
Yep.
Cole. Cole.
Colville.
Cole is here, the number two. Cole still is here. Then our CB Silva, the middle center back, he stays in the here. Then here could be Rhys James. Here, Rhys James, because we know Rhys James can also step in the midfield. And what's interesting is that apart from Rhys James staying here, Rhys James could also play as one of the two in midfield. He could also step in as one of the two in midfield. If he does that, then Declan Rice could form part of that back three. So
Makes sense. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So imagine this six is Declan Rice, okay, Rice or a DM, Ampadu, a DM. So the DM comes to the back three, forms the back three. Silva stays in the middle because he will get caught for pace at the wide areas. So Rhys James comes into the midfield, joins a Kovacic. So Rhys James and Kovacic pivots. Then we now have a Callum, or I won't say Pulisic because Pulisic doesn't is not a wide player. He's a wide player, but he's not someone that starts from wide like Callum does, that hugs the touchline and takes people on from cutting inside. Pulisic has changed his game so much that he plays in the hole and plays in the pockets now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so for wide for the wide rights, instead of Rich James now, I'll put Dembele because I'm saying Dembele because I feel it's far down the line for the deal to be done. So Dembele, wide here, wide rights. So and I think that's the difference maker here, especially both sides. Those are the difference makers. So those two wingers push the other defenders back, creating space for Mount either side of this. Mount could play anywhere beside, but let's put Mount with Dembele. Let's just put Mount with Dembele here. So Mount makes his runs. That chemistry we saw with Ziyech, that Ziyech
Yep.
plays the runs of Mount. Briefly when we were playing 4-3-3, that is also going to be an interesting development because Mount likes his cutbacks. Mount knows how to cut back. He knows how to cross the ball. So that will be a key development. And Dembele on his own, if he wants to take initiatives, that's what we need, a special player that can say, okay, screw it. I'm going to do this on my own. That kind of thing.
Yep.
So with Havertz dropping in again, moving, causing problems, which can. So here we could now put. Okay, this is the Mount is the third midfielder. Then this is the left back. Okay, yeah. So Chilwell, we all know Chilwell is a movement player. Chilwell loves runs in behind. So Chilwell could be someone that could arrive late in the box for us, and as well as Chilwell can stay wide. And I remember watching Tuchel's wing backs or fullbacks in PSG, and Bernat stayed a lot high at PSG. He played really high up at PSG, and he was making a lot of movements, runs in behind. So I think Chilwell can perform that role. If we get someone another wing back, left wing back like Rom likes to play
Yep.
wide. Yeah,
Central is
Rom.
probably going to cry a little bit right now if we mention Rom. So
Yeah, yeah.
man's
Rom,
written nothing less than 20 threads about him, but now we read about City being
super
interested in
player,
Rom. So yeah,
super player.
yeah. Awesome
Rom
player.
is
Yeah.
someone that can take crosses from any angle. Any angle, if he stays wide, he likes his early crosses. So that will really be interesting, the dynamic here. So that's just my take on how my 4-3-3 will look like. Yeah.
Exactly. I think yeah, we've seen two very distinct views on the 4-3-3, and yep, very detailed as well. And yep, I think both of you have futures in management, wherever it goes, at any level. I'd play for you guys if you'd have me, obviously. And yep, so let me move it on to Aspin as well. And uh, I'm sort of going to make this. You guys feel free to jump in at any point because I think this is something that's debated a lot on Twitter, right? Especially with respect to our system. So, do you think Tuchel plays the 3-4-3 to protect our midfield? As in, some people say there's a lack of pace in transition. If there are direct runners running at Jorginho Kovacic, maybe they struggle a little bit. Is one point of view. And another school of thought basically says that we don't have natural wingers, right? Pulisic was, I guess, during lockdown, as in the post-lockdown, Pulisic looked like the person who could take people on, beat them either side, but we haven't seen him do it, enough this season for sure. Callum Hudson-Odoi has been in and out of form. Ziyech, uh, I'm not too sure what his best profile is. He's definitely best, creating from out wide, but he struggled with that in part. So I'll start with Aspin, and then you guys feel free to jump in. Do you think the 3-4-3 is to protect our midfield or to sort of mask up the lack of direct attacking ability of our wingers?
Well, to begin answering that question, Hebar, first you have to understand that modern football is all about vertical passing. By vertical
Exactly.
passing, I mean you start from the defense. The quicker, faster, and the more accurate you can get the ball to your top guys, your attackers, your dangerous people that can cause problem to the opposition. The more dangerous you are in attack. Simple as that. You talk about City, you talk about Liverpool, you talk about Bayern, all attacking teams, and the core of their attack is always vertical passing. So why? So the 3-4-3, it comes down to the very fact that once you have the vertical passing going on, Jorginho, again, it's a debatable topic, but you talk about Kovacic, his game reading ability in transitions is not exactly great. I'm not
Yep.
saying he's
Yep.
not bad at it, but he's not exactly great at it. And by great, I mean we talk about players like maybe Bissouma, or we go a step up. You talk about players like NTD. You talk about Kante himself, maybe a season back. Talk about Fabinho. You talk about Rodri. These are the players that identify the dangers that is lurking in these vertical passing lanes, and they position themselves in the right positions to cut this out. And that's where 3-4-3 or any formation with a long DM becomes effective. Now, see, when you talk about 3-4-3 or that we were, employing with, say, Jorginho and Kovacic, nobody is running at our midfield. There is never a man to man pace issue in our midfield. The issue is not a single player on the pitch can run as fast as the ball. Simple as that. So either we should have players that are fast enough to catch the forwards that are running against us, which in many cases are much faster than the wingbacks that we had, say Alonso. And Reece James is again a debatable topic, but he has improved, maybe arguably the best player for Chelsea this season. So that's again a debatable topic. What the left side of our defense was usually the area that was getting caught out, especially in Lampard era. Yeah, and then the issue was, we were not having any player to cut out the vertical passes. So you put three at the back, we have extra cover. So even if the vertical passing of the opposition goes extremely well, what happens is that you have that extra layer of protection at the back. So maybe that's the actual reason that Thomas Tuchel prefers to play a back three with the players we had in last 1.5 seasons per se, and not the midfield issue. It's more of like an interception issue that we are having of cutting off the attack somewhere in middle.
Makes sense. I'll let Central and Sean jump in on the same. So Central, I'll let you go first. Is it to protect our wingers? Is it to protect our midfield?
I think it's just Tuchel trying to be very resourceful in terms of seeing what he has at his disposal and then going with it. I like the 3-4-3. I feel like there are certain elements that give you an edge over other formations. Like if you can go back to the tactics board for a second, can you bring that up, Akash?
Yep. Yep. Just sharing my screen. Give me a
Yeah.
second. My laptop chooses today of all days to act up. Give me. Yep. You can let me know.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I
Go
think
for
we're
it.
here. Yeah, so basically, what Tuchel sort of is trying to do, or has been trying to do since his Dortmund days when he's played with a three at the back, is try to get these guys, the wide centre backs. Number two, obviously, I am keeping Rudiger here, and number 23 in case Jules Koundé comes in. So these guys are basically sort of given the license to come here and create wide overload. So you basically want some kind of a 3v2 here out wide when you've got, so these two guys, the number 10, which is Pulisic, and 21, which is Chilwell, these two guys will often rotate positions, which obviously we've not been able to do because Pulisic has been injured, out of form. Chilwell has been out of the side. Callum Hudson-Odoi also out of the side. Timo Werner tends to just hug the touchline and then go inwards. He's basically got this in his armory. But these two guys, if you've got, tend to keep rotating inside and outside. So when you've got one of the two center backs, the wide center backs coming inside, you've got this 3v2. And this ball, if I can draw a line here.
Yep. I think the arrow.
I'm
It
trying
was
to
working,
figure.
but
It was
yeah.
working earlier. I'm just figuring out. Yeah, like this. So basically, trying to get these like runs for Kai Havertz here. When you've got a wide progressive centre back, this is what you're looking for. You're trying to get him to either put balls here, because this guy Pulisic is probably holding the opposition DM or central midfielder here, and you've got your fullback pulling the fullback out, the opposition fullback out wide. So this space has to be exploited either through passing, or you get this person to make a run over here. The advantage this offers is that you get closer to the box to offer. From this position, I wouldn't call it a cross, I would call it a cutback, which is far more accurate, far more devastating to put into the box. This is what Manchester City does really well.
City.
These
It was
positions.
just going to mention Man City. You see them
Yeah,
doing it like 5-6 times a game
yeah. So
in these
this
same
is this
areas.
is yeah, this is a, this is an automation that City have sort of almost muscle memory with. You've got one of the central midfielders who will, just pull wide. For example, again, the numbers don't correlate, but you've got Kovacic who often does this for us. He will come really, really wide, while Chilwell will be here somewhere in the middle. And then you've got Pulisic who will try to make runs here because you've got again a 3v2. So you've got this guy back here. Kovacic again will be trying to figure out how to pull one of these people out wide. So these rotations in Chilwell running into the box when he was inverting from this position, when you've got two people stretching the center back and the fullback, or the central midfielder and the fullback out wide, you need this space to make a run. Now, this is what, if I look at the profiles that we are targeting at centre back, say Tosco Guardiola, or we're looking at Jules Koundé. So I'm just going to shift on the right hand side. What Koundé does brilliantly is basically he loves this position. When he comes from build up, he will come here and he will try to create some kind of opportunity to give either Reece James a crossing opportunity or play Mount into the box, either with simple passes, or he will try to play Reece James in for a cross. What he also does is, if the two men on the opposition side are now blocking Mount and Reece James, he tends to come here. So you will get a ball here. You've got your centre back coming this far wide to put a cross inside.
Exactly.
So
So I think it was one thing which we noticed, right? So if you watch Jules Koundé playing, you automatically assume he's either a right back or a right side
correct.
centered back, but he's providing the same by being, a center back, too, which is like crazy.
Correct. So I think just the virtue of being a centre back at this position gives you, again, it gives you a 3v2. If the side is not well equipped, it gives you three men on the right hand side or the left hand side, compared to how your positional this thing is. Of course, if Havertz decide to drift, then you've got another person here to cause an issue, which this also happens, which is why Mount tends to come to central areas, or you'll see Pulisic coming inside
The
to sort of
famous
score.
Danny.
Yeah, so Pulisic also tends to make these positional runs. A lot of the shots you tend to see, he'll either drift inside here or he'll come straight here to try and finish, which he hasn't been doing very well. But So
True.
these are the
Yeah.
positions that which he tries to hold. So I think Koundé, Guardiola are Tuchel's attempt to say, okay, how do we utilize that extra man to threaten from here? Rudiger, excellent defensively, great at recovery runs, would defend well at his peak. He sort of like trailed off at the end of the season. Form drop, Real Madrid contract, good money. So a lot of things happened, but trying to make the best from these situations was basically a little bit lackluster. So that is something that I think Tuchel will try to reinforce. The other thing is obviously when you've got one of the centre backs who is pushing out wide, what happens to this structure? What happens to your 3-2? So you've got two centre backs here, you've got your two midfielders here. These are positions where basically like we used to get hammered a lot, because on defensive transitions it was five people here, then you've got one centre back like Rudiger would be sometimes here, Kovacic here, and Silva sort of at the edge here. So this would be five. So I would say like this, somewhat like this, like a adventurous kind of positioning like this. So again, these two central midfielders, one of them need to be able to come back when this guy is going forward. So we haven't been able to do that with Kante. We haven't been able to do that with Kovacic. Either of them slotting into centre back against a counter attack again was used to be issues. Plus Thiago Silva at 37, you can't expect him to make recovery runs over and over again. I mean, over a season, not just over a game, but over a season also tends to take a toll. And I think it would be unwise to rely on him to provide this kind of high line and also to cover this amount of incredible space behind him. So what we need to
I
do
think
now is
this,
if
yeah,
you're,
this,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
this
go on,
showed,
Akash.
right? I think in the Martinelli goal, which Arsenal celebrates almost every week, and also
Yeah,
the goal I think which Sancho scored against us was, I think, illustrates
Jorginho.
what you're showing right now.
yeah.
Having those people.
So yeah,
Yeah.
those situations have happened over and over again. Like, more often than not, teams let us have possession because we just don't provide the kind of threat that we did earlier in the season without Chilwell, without James. We used to get into this shape like a 3-2-5, and then you will have sometimes Andreas stepping up, sometimes I'll just say Andreas here. Okay. So sometimes Andreas coming here or Chaluba coming here, but not enough threat from these positions. And the moment breaks used to happen, then you used to target these spaces, like this space here. Again, I'm so sorry, I'm really bad with the tactics board. This is the first time I'm
Nah,
so
trust me,
yeah.
we're all on the same page. Cheers.
So these spaces basically like behind the wide center backs, you would try and target these spaces. You would find like an opposition wide man here trying to run behind, and Silva would basically try to track back. But these are the spaces that we used to get hit a lot in. And Rudiger would defend really well, but sometimes like without Chilwell here. Chilwell is like I think a very underrated aspect of Chilwell is his dynamism. Like I think the season before we signed him, he was I think top in the Premier League for the amount of sprints that he made over the league season. So he's just very, very dynamic. And the good part about him sometimes is that he thinks like a left back. He's not adventurous enough to get into these positions against good sides. He's always going to come here and then he'll drop back because he's always anticipating some kind of defensive issue to happen. So the solidity that Chilwell provides in these positions is excellent. So I think we will concede lesser goals with him in the side. We will get a lot more defensive awareness, a lot of defensive positioning with whoever our left centre back is, Chilwell back, and probably like whoever the mobile LCM is. These three guys will be able to shut down a lot of the attacks that happened with Alonso. But over the course of the next season, when we are trying to incorporate Koundé, when we are trying to get Dembele, who tends to lose a lot of balls because he's constantly trying to get balls in, he's constantly trying to attack these positions. So when the ball loss happens, then who is your midfielder who's winning those recoveries? We don't have a Rodri, we don't have a Fabinho. Okay, they're not incredible when they're 1v1, but in terms of eating up balls in this zone, I think they're just this zone. When the ball falls, the second ball comes here, Rodri, Fabinho, these guys just eat up everything and recycle the ball back to whoever is around.
World
This is the
class.
player that we are lacking. So who is that midfielder that we're going to look at. Now, fourth or fifth in the league, Declan Rice, in terms of recoveries, fits in really well. When I look at Ampadu, again, solid defensive stats, but on the ball, he's not great. But again, you have to consider he's played at Venezia and they just got relegated. So, you're not going to play possession football in a side that is like 19th to 20th. So he is good. When he's played for us, he is calm, he's collected. But even if he offers this positional security, I think it increases the chances of us being more stable, allowing Chilwell to say, okay, let's go, Kunde to come forward and say, okay, if something happens, then I have one person who's slotting back, because this happens a lot at Sevilla. You've got a lot of guys who think defensively first. When you look at Nemanja Gudeli, when you look at Fernando, these guys will always come here first,
This is the
saying,
Fernando who
okay,
was at City, right? He
yeah,
played a
exit,
season
yeah.
at City and okay, makes
Correct,
sense.
correct.
Makes
So
sense.
he's there. So
Yeah.
he was a defensive midfielder. So and he also sort of tends to play centre back sometimes. So he also is happy to slot into these areas. And the number one thing is, you don't even have to slot into centre back. The number one thing you have to do is just delay. You delay the counter attack enough for Kunde to come back and recover into position. So if you got guys who can do that, who can offer emergency centre back positions, who can cut out central sort of issues, cause delays, then yes, then I think then you've solved a major problem. And the
Makes
other
sense. And I think
midfielder,
I
the
think
other
with
midfielder you can
yeah.
keep.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'll pitch in after you. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the other midfielder you can keep. I mean, in terms of having somebody like a Jorginho, I think Jorginho and Rice is a very interesting combination in terms of
Exactly.
having
That
somebody
would
to protect. Yeah, having
that would
somebody to
burn
protect
Twitter though.
his. Sorry.
That would set Twitter on fire though if they started together.
I think there's a lot of insecurity from these, aesthetic merchants that, oh my God, Jorginho is going to, be swatted out by tackling. I think Jorginho is a great player. And like most registers, he's not mobile. He has, I think his mind works like 10 times faster than his body does. And that's completely fine. But his intelligence in the way he dictates play, in the way he sort of moves people around, uh, he's critical in the way that we progress from the defensive to the attacking third. He's better at the ball than I think most of our midfielders currently, and the way he secure in possession, the way he circulates it, uses it around, I think it's going to be very critical. So Gilmore, Jorginho next to Declan Rice, Kovacic against certain opposition, I think that will be a good ploy to go.
Makes sense. And I think, yep. So the point I was making was that if you have dribblers like Kunde and Dembele, right, you're definitely going to turn the ball over more often than
Many
not
times,
on the right. You
many times.
definitely
Yeah.
need someone who can. So when you say Jorginho can't defend space, I think it's sort of wrong. But pace is definitely a weakness there. So if you have
Yeah.
people running beyond him, running at him, not the
Mhm.
most ideal scenario. And I definitely feel a lot more comfy having someone like Ampadu or Rice in
Yeah.
the squad, right?
He
I
does
think
well. I
central,
think
yeah.
defensively, his numbers are pretty good. Like, when he comes into this zone to stop players, he does have a high number of recoveries. He tends to sort of press players well. Like when I say like causing delays enough for your defensive guys to fall back, I think he does that like well enough. In certain areas, he understands this thing. But the moment you get your first dribble past him is when he's in trouble. Then you've completely burnt him. And then you have,
Exactly.
yeah, then you have like major issues with like Silva going backwards, your white center back going backwards, and then again Alonso, uh, just like Alonso, and then we didn't have James also for the longest time. So those caused issues
And there was Aspi there.
for the longest time. So Aspi also, again, sometimes just you could tell that physically it was getting a little out of hand towards the end of the season. So that's something that can be done. He's not bad, but he's not the best in the world at doing it.
Makes sense. And I think your very detailed answer, and thank you, Central, for the insight that you've given there. And I'll move on to Sean again, right? So, in terms of LCB, if I was to ask you for one profile or one specific player to sort of bring the progression that we want from these deep areas, who would it be? Would it be Colville? Would you want us to sign someone like Guardiola? Or, do you think there are other options in the market who can play that role?
Well,
And give me
firstly,
1 second. I think the tactics
okay,
board is reloading, but Sean, if yeah.
okay, yeah, I can see the tactics board reloading. Yeah,
Yep,
well, for
got it.
LCB targets, um, the brilliant points made by Central there, really. And when he was talking throughout, the game that screamed in my head was Wolves, Chelsea versus Wolves at home, the 2-2 draw, because it really depicted the
Yeah,
spaces besides Silva, and Silva had to do a lot of running. I was like, Silva had to do running that he didn't do in his 20s, like, so
exactly.
he
Yeah.
really depicted a lot. And I think for the left back, left CB, well, if to keep it a buck here, I think Guavidol is actually a very really progressive centre back, really progressive, and sometimes too progressive. If you get what I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, like
One way of putting it. Yep. True.
yes, he tries a lot of vertical passes, and I mean a bunch of vertical passes that gets cut out to a lot. And it's like, well, he's young, he's 20. He doesn't yet know how to limit, know when to keep the ball. Sometimes you don't make a lot of vertical passes every time. Is unrealistic because you keep turning the ball over, and maybe because of the style of play of Leipzig, it's passable. But if you do that in the Premier League, you get roasted every time because you
True.
have
Yep.
teams, yeah, you have teams that can easily take advantage of the ball, and once they know, that's the thing about the Premier League. Once they know your weakness or something that they can leverage on, each team every game week, the same thing, they will target that area. Each team, that's the Premier League is crazy. The managers are really, they're so good. Yeah, so they just pick it from each other, and so that's for Gavido. Kowo, Kowo is really progressive too. I've taken the liberty of watching some games, and also Kowo knows how to carry the ball. Kobe knows how to punch those balls into their spaces. Kobe knows how to also take the balls from, uh, if I can get that arrow. Okay,
Yep. So I think it's down here, Sean. So
okay.
if you're able to see my screen, yep, right below there.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it. So Cole, yes. So Cole likes this balls. How do I cover it?
I think Central is probably the pro. That looks like a snake, bro. Let me find out if I can get.
Yes, definitely.
I'm
Cole
on it. I'm
likes.
on it, Jabbar. I'm on it.
Cool, cool, cool. We're sorted then.
Thanks. So Corey likes those kind of balls from that position into his forwards, and that's going to be very interesting because I think Havertz likes to make those kind of runs from the side. I remember Spurs, the goal he scored against Spurs. He made that kind of run. So that will also be interesting because if Rudiger, like Central said, Rudiger has a lot of things, but I think the absence of a left-footed centre back was really missing from Tuchel's.
For sure, yep.
Yeah, it was really missing from there because Rudiger, he had the long pass in his locker, but he had the diagonals and the straight balls from the straight line passes in behind. He had those, but those left curved passes in behind are really like not easy. They're harder to defend than the rest. So that will be interesting, and that will be something that maybe someone like Koulibaly wouldn't also be able to do
Dream signing
consistently.
for me, bro. Though. I really,
Yeah,
really hope we sign Koulibaly, though. Huge fan
yeah.
of him. So.
So Koulibaly Koulibaly is a beast, right? Is a beast. So he that might be another issue, but I think I've seen Koulibaly make more of those passes than Rudiger with his left foot. Like I watched Rudiger, Koulibaly on the Sari. I watched Koulibaly sometimes this season, and Koulibaly has that left-footed pass in his locker. So that's something he can also add. He will not add it as much as the left-footed guys, but at least he can bring that to the table and much more, so much more. So that is also, but I think Koulibaly is my preference for left CB. Yeah, basically, and Cole that and reason being because first he's 30 years, his experience is massive, massive experience, wealth of experience. Has faced Europe's best forwards in the Champions League year after year, and he has held his own against them. We all remember when he shackled Mbappe. We all remember when he has shackled Salah. So his experience is there, and he also has the speed to keep up with them. And Arteta is far from finished, very
Exactly.
far
Yeah.
from finished.
Lot of people complaining that is 30. Like we don't have Thiago Silva being world class week in week out at 37. So yeah.
And I watched him again in the Afcon, right? Afcon, he was immense, immense. Like no one could touch him, right? So it's very interesting. Who else? Because I don't know whether if the late, if can someone jump in here quick? Does the league play left CB?
Delayed, I think, is more of the CCB kind, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, but definitely makes sense. I think the options that you just said of
He's a
Cole
very
will,
technical
yeah,
player. I mean, if you want him to play LCB, yes, but to what effect? Because since he has not played in that role, we have not seen him in that role. We
Hmm.
cannot really judge him based on. But when you talk about it, he's very young and very, he's a product of modern football training. And when you think about it, the versatility is the core of modern football. So that being said, so he should be able to do it. Of course, how effectively can he do it? Yet to be seen.
Yeah,
makes
next point.
sense. Yep.
And I have one more point to make. If we can go to, okay, we don't need to really. Okay, yeah, we can go to the board. Um, and
Aspin, are you sharing or? Yep, I think
Yeah,
Aspin
yeah,
is.
it's already there. It's already there.
Got it. Got it.
and Central really made it beer, right? Um, that once that Jorginho around this, can someone help me highlight the zone 18 out behind Mount and Havertz, that area for counter pressing where we can just this area around here.
The number 10 area is what you're
Yeah,
saying, right?
yeah, this area.
Got, got
Yes,
it. I'm just adding a circle there. Yep, yep,
yes,
we have it.
and I think what really bonded us last season is the fact that, like Central said, once Jorginho's bypassed and we always still catch Kova or Kante really high up. So once they are involved in attack and the press is broken, Jorginho is gone, then the other team is off. They're onto our goal. There's nothing stopping them. Silva is like our last let's say results, the Terry off the line kind of
Anchorman.
result. Yeah. So Rudiger uses his speed well to help us also stop some of those transitions, and Chilwell too, as when he was fit. But the fact that the midfield was so clear, let me remove that. The fact the midfield was so empty when all those attacks came in was what really bonded us last season. Okay, imagine if, and that's what I like about Rice. One of the things I like about Rice is the fact that he knows how to delay counters so well. It might not. He knows how to tackle. He knows how to. He has the speed to keep up, but he knows how to delay counters so much and wait for the others to come in, and at least blocking the passing lanes, blocking the movement, following the player as much as he can. So that's what we need. I think that's what we need in our midfield next season. And I remember against Germany, England against Germany, that there was one movement, one action that happened that when when Rice when Rice he tackled the ball and he went when Rice tackled the ball and he immediately went back to, yeah, he pressed the ball, he stopped the ball, but he now ran back again to give a slide into, I think, Musiala. I can't remember, is it Musiala or so, that immediately he still ran back to win the ball. So that's a tackle that Jorginho cannot make, if you feel me. So that's what Rice can do, and that's what Jorginho can do. So that's very interesting how If we can get a midfielder for next season, I can do that.
Hopefully that happens, and thank you so much, Son, for your insight into that as well. And I think there's a lot of stuff that all of us will agree on, and definitely things that Tuchel will have in mind for next season. And we're almost at the end of our stream, and it's been so much fun talking football with you guys, and hopefully we can do this again. How we'll wrap up is I'll let all of you go to the tactics screen and then sort of walk us through your ideal first 11 for next season and ideal formation. So I can see Aspin setting something up right now. So Aspin, take it away. Your favorite formation for next season and favorite 11. So
A lot of people watching here, especially Bollywood, already figured out what I'm,
yeah.
going to say. But that being said, I am very interested to see if we will actually employ a sort of I'd call it a, what can I say, 3-1-4-2 kind of formation. I'll just depict it right here with our three center backs, one holding mid, and four midfielders. I mean, the wing backs pushing up, and let's leave the ball outside for a moment. Okay, so this is the ideal paper. Formation on paper, of course. Let's just for namesake, we'll put Kai and Pulisic here, Kovacic and this guy here. So why this formation? If you would ask me, while attack, we of course are very familiar with the style which we attack with the kind of five at the back and five at the back attack. But suddenly, say we got Declan Rice, we can actually accommodate an oblique type of formation in which we still have five attackers and five defenders. It's just that we are just concentrating on one side of the pitch at a time. Now, what this does give is, of course, it adds a sort of imbalance to the attack. But say, for example, the famous goal of Vinicius that won them the Champions League, you can clearly see that, Robertson, say this is Robertson. He had pushed forward. He was pressing Modric. Modric was somewhere here. He had the ball. He had three defenders here. I mean, three players of his team somewhere in this area who are ready to receive the ball. But Robertson, he kept on pressing Modric until the time Modric found someone here. He found Valverde, and before they knew it, uh, he had a put across and Vinicius has scored. So what I'm coming to is modern football, as I again said, it's usually very hard to find bits and gaps in the defense, and usually it is just that one player, that one man who makes a wrong decision, and you need to take advantage of it. So in this particular formation, say we have Rice here, say we have Kunde, and say we have a maybe as Sion said, I'm CFC Central said we get delete and he is able to play left mid. We have eliminated the pace issue in both the areas, and instead of having one man staying back, we suddenly have two people staying back. So we have that extra cover here, and it is not five in the attack and five in the defense now. It suddenly sits in the attack versus four in the defense with an extra cover in defense. That's the huge important point that we have to look at. So say this guy is able to cover and delay counter attacks like Fabinho, like Fernandinho, like Rodri, like maybe Declan Rice. And speaking of Declan Rice, I still have doubts on whether he can play this long game or not. But say we have that kind of player, we get that kind of player. This is the preferred formation I would go for. I mean, we have lots of options. Leave this area for now. Okay, leave our defense for now. You look at our attack. Say we have Gallagher here. Say we have Mount here. Mount can go on into that free roaming role in this area. Gallagher can use his box to box abilities to the full extent. There is absolutely nobody invading each other's space. The wingers, Chilwell and Reese, will have absolute freedom in their wing. There will be a proper center forward. Kai Havertz, maybe, if not another forward, if we sign someone else after we get rid of Lukaku, I'm not sure. And we'll have that second striker who have the entire area to his advantage. Now, what does that advantage give us? That gives him the ability to choose, and ability to choose words, whether he want to go wide. Say we have Reece coming forward, a wing back goes and takes him. He can use this space that pops up. He can drop deep, and the players like Pulisic, we already mentioned, he has turned into sort of a whole player, and this is the kind of areas that you want him taking up the ball in. Get an idea of what he is facing, and then go about taking on players or finding the next pass. So as I said, maybe a 3-1-4-2 might become our formation next season again. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, it will all come down to exactly what Tuchel will get out of this window, and it's a tough ask because we cannot really predict what will happen in the transfer window. But as for me, I think this should work. Of course, I'm not especially sitting here, but there was a really interesting question asked to by R9, of course, one of our regulars. What am I studying? So, leave what am I studying? We all have our dreams, and for me, my dream is maybe in some 20-25 years, go somewhere in Europe and start coaching. And I really mean it, and I have plans set up in motion for it. From, as I said, it is 20-25 years plan, but I have plans set up for it. So it's something that I'm really interested in from a young age. So,
And yeah, judging by how you described how Chelsea should play, I'm sure you'll make a really, really good coach, bro. And I hope that happens for sure. And like you mentioned, right? I think was it Guardiola who said that games are won mostly by overloading the box in one side and then switching play, finding people out of position. I'm guessing so. And I agree with
well,
the
overloading
3-1-4.
box, Atlanta is the most prolific team in overloading box at the moment. I mean, especially when they had Papu Gomez, but of course they have fallen out of order a bit. But their tactics in the season, in which they scored 99 or 101 goals, I think that was absolutely amazing. Guardiola is a very evolving manager. You cannot judge him for one type of tactics that he uses. He is full of tricks and bits, and he is a very
True.
master of the game. Of course, he makes mistake, who doesn't? But he has made some, or he had made some costly ones. Maybe he will get time to make his amends.
Makes sense. And yep, I'll direct this question to directly to Central. So Central runners through your ideal 11. And yep. And Aspin, if you can share your screen, I think Central can probably walk us through the board there. So,
I'm just going to wait.
Yeah,
what do you want?
it's right there.
Got it. I think this is one bug we need to fix with the app. Yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
something I'd like to sort of highlight is, I think, Guardiola's concept of how he plays or sets up his side in the attacking third. So I'm just going to quickly sort of, he tends to use a lot of variations. I mean, he's excellent at pulling out these new structures. Sometimes you'll see, like this time we saw Bernardo Silva sitting next to Rodri and doing all sorts of things in the double pivot, and then he'd move somewhere else in the attacking third. But usually, what he tends to do is, you've got, let's say, two centre backs in Laporte and Diaz, who are like here. Then you've got Rodri as the sixth. Then you've got the two inverted fullbacks. Basically, on the left hand side, it's Zinchenko, sometimes Cancelo. Say you've got Walker over here. So these are not accurate jersey numbers. I apologize. Then you've got two guys here in the half spaces. So this is Bernardo Silva, or this one is Kevin De Bruyne. And then, of course, you've got the front three. So you'll have Gabriel Jesus here, or sometimes out wide. And you've got two guys who are basically providing the width. So you've got Mahrez or any of the other Foden who are basically out here. So you've got a basically 2-3-2-3 formation. Now, this guy is, what this setup does is, you've got two guys who are pretty mobile and good at defending one-on-ones. Diaz had this solid first season where he was almost unbeatable when there used to be counters at him, so he would do really well. Laporte also does pretty well. But this zone, this danger zone that we've been struggling in with like two midfielders, Pep basically found a way to reduce the distances that your midfielders have to cover by, instead of two midfielders, getting three midfielders here. So I would say something of this sort, getting, of course, you've got say your two center backs, I would say. So let's say there's Thiago Silva, and there is whoever the left center back is. Then you've got again, the numbers aren't perfect, so I apologize, but
No worries, no worries. Go for it.
yeah. So the ideal lineup, even if we go with say a 3 at the back, would be to find a way to get, say, I'd get Declan Rice a different number. I don't know which one. 18. Okay, let's give him 18. So Rice somewhere here. You've got two of your midfielders, one midfielder here in the half space, and the other one, like say Jules Koundé here, and you would allow your somewhat like this. So you've got Chilwell and Reece James out wide, while you've got two guys who are here somewhere in the middle. Now, I would ideally have Mason Mount here for sure. Like he's definitely done really well in this position. Although in a 4-3-3, I think even if he drops deeper as the 8 could be a great solution. But again, the balance has to be something that we have to consider. This other 10 is somebody that whoever we're going to buy, this probably is going to be Ousmane Dembele, who can play in this position really well. And you've got Chilwell and James, who will be rotating with the two guys out wide and providing the kind of positional pinging, like we said, that unsettles defenders. And you've got your Jules Koundé here providing your wide overload, but this person has to be either Declan Rice, I think, or has to be in our current squad. I think Ethan Ampadu can do that role really well. He's somebody that I've watched a lot at Venezia, and he can provide obviously this kind of defensive solidity, and the fact that he can also play at centre back is I think a great option to have. So this person trying to reduce these gaps and getting obviously your attacking players into the box as often as possible, having still a 5-man attack, but changing the configuration slightly, making it more mobile. Like let's say Dembele here and Pulisic out. So, something like this, because Dembele tends to score a lot more on the left. He tends to create a lot more on the right. So, Mount can also play on the left. So this configuration also can be something that works for me. So that would be my ideal thing. I mean, I don't expect 6 signings, 7 signings, 3 of them marquee to come in and do all sorts of things. For me, this will be Thiago Silva, and this can be Trevor Chalobah or Koulibaly or anybody else who comes in who can basically anchor. We've also been linked to Mary Demiral from Juventus. So a lot of centre backs centre backs being linked with that position. Somebody who can provide a 1v win thing. But this is where, if we go, I think Silva could struggle, because next year we don't know what shape he's going to be physically. I mean, he's an absolute monster in terms of his conditioning and something. But at 38, how many 38-year-old centre backs have you seen play in the Premier League? So I tend to be a little more on the cautious side. But this is somewhat what my configuration would look like. It would be a 2-3-5, like a 2-3-2-3. Getting Dembele in, getting Rice in, and getting one centre back. So realistically, 3 signings and shipping out all the deadwood.
Makes sense. And you're ruthless shipping out of the deadwood right there. And
yeah.
I think with Dembele especially, it's a surprise for me to see him on the left, because I don't know, in my mind is always the guy cutting in from the right, sort of creating. But like you mentioned, he scores more from the left. He two-footed. He doesn't know, I think, which his strong foot is. So,
he did play a lot on the left at Dortmund also, and tend to switch sides also. I think the best type is just let him roam, but I don't think Tuchel allows that kind of liberty anymore, where you can just roam around and pick whatever spot you want. So you can play him on the left. He likes cutting in and shooting with his right. He creates better on the right hand side from what his stats seem to suggest. So, but again, Mason Mount also plays well on the right, can play on the left, can play deeper. So there are a lot of solutions to them. But in terms of being very judicious, being very realistic in terms of how many signings we can make, I think this is probably the best plan A I can think of. And then maybe next season try and get a world-class centre back to replace Silva and basically relook your plan there.
Makes perfect sense. And yep, I think we're aligned on how we want our ideal squad to look like next season, right? And at least within the next few weeks, we're hoping to see some transfer activity, see some of the holes in our squad filled, and hopefully that happens. And yep, just checking with Aspen, do we have anything else on the agenda, or are we good to
Well, I did have something, but let's just keep it for the next Thursday. I would suppose,
Sure.
because it will just go on elongating things. It's just speculations right now, and let's just see if by next weekend we can get some kind of clarity on what kind of players we'll be signing, and then we'll have better numbers to work on, better names to work on. I would say, right, CFC Center. And
Oh, thank
as you
you so
said, I
much.
would really agree to one thing. Three signings, yes, three signings would be more than enough, but they should be key signings and the right signings for us, because we usually forget a lot of things, and one of those things being players like Broha and Gallagher coming back from loan. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks, I would say. 2 weeks, I would say.
Yep.
I agree. I agree. I think the key would be just to make, like, the three signings you make are going to be absolute starters. Like, they have to be key signings that slot straight in. You pay good money for them. Don't bargain. Don't tend to lose out on anything. Just get them and supplement the rest of the signings with the guys coming back from loan or whoever is trying to break into the first team. I think Gilmore, if he's coming back, I think he should definitely be there to rotate with Jorginho. Now that Saul is gone, Loftus Cheek, I don't know what his role is going to be. Gallagher is there. If he can rotate with either Mount, either Dembele, one of those two inside forwards or half backs or half wingers, as Tuchel tends to call them, I think he also has a place in that position. Not his ideal one, but in terms of how he's been attacking, I think it will suit him. So I think we've got enough to say, yes, we have sorted. We've got good players who can cover all holes, but it's just finding the right balance of experience and, real world class pedigree to come in
It's
and
about
and
getting the results. It's
yeah,
like we have the raw materials. It's now all about the processing, what we can actually do with it, and getting the results, I would say.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's going to be key, and there are going to be errors like that, no doubt. I mean, the moment I've seen about 10, 15 games of Colville, I know there are going to be errors, and that's okay. I would rather that he make errors now and learn for next season rather than go out on some obscure loan and then have his head turned and say, okay, I have no future here. Make your mistakes, might cost us a point or two, but he's going to improve. He's that kind of player who makes those mistakes. Ampadu also has done his stripes. He's gone out on a very difficult loan, done well. Gilmore also. So it will be a huge learning
Ampadu
curve.
played,
It
I
will
think,
be
six different positions for Vitesse. I think
six
that's
or
Ampadu,
seven,
right?
yes. Say, yeah, 7, 6 or 7. So he played right centre back, he played right back, he played defensive midfielder, centre
Right
midfielder,
wing back, right wing back,
right wing
left
back,
center midfield.
left centre back. He also, like, Ollie Glanville was mentioning on the London is Blue podcast. I think somebody got sent off and he was playing right wing at one point. So 7 positions realistically. And if you've got that kind of versatility, I would definitely keep him. I would give him a chance. And he looks like the kind of guy who will make the best of it. I mean, he's going to be in Wales starting lineup come this World Cup. So he will be, key. And he's only like about 20, 21 years old. So long, long way to go.
Makes sense. And yep, at this point, we're like 13 minutes over time, but this has been one of the most fun football conversations I've had in a long, long time. And Central, Sion, and Aspen, I hope we can do this more often. We've had a lot of people saying that they want us to do this more often in the chat, so hopefully we will. And thank you so much, guys. This was amazing, and you're all legends. And
Yeah, even I'm
Thank you so much.
surprised because last time we had a tactical discussions, we are actually struggling for people to, but the viewers have been very positive. We have 43 right now. It's not a bad number, but we will be building on it. And as many of the people as we will be continuing these sessions. And you know what they say, test of fire makes fine steel. So Chelsea is undergoing the test of fire right now. So we'll just see how fine a steel we can get out of this club. So it's been such a pleasure evening today with Son and Central. Thank you very much for being on our channel, and of course, Hebbar, always a pleasure having you alongside, buddy.
for sure,
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure, and really happy that we could have these discussions. I mean, I've never worked with a tactical board on a podcast or a video cast before, so I'm going to be like playing around, and hopefully I'll be better prepared. I know that at some points I might have panicked and like might have looked like Michael Owen, but I will do it better next time. I think it's
nah,
enough
you didn't trust
improvements
me. You
to
you
go
couldn't
by.
be that bad even if you tried, bro. So don't worry at all.
No, no,
This
no.
this
I
was
mean,
yours.
I tend to have like, yeah, when I look at it, I'm pretty sure when I look back at this, I'll be like, holy shit, like, what was I doing? But I think it's just just growing and getting better at it. So I think you've given me something to improve on and work on. I think that's the best thing that I can take away. So
Yep.
super
Hopefully we can
enjoyable.
find. Hopefully we can find time to have both of you guys back on board. Sean, this was fun as well. So yeah. Cool guys. I'll let all of you get back to your evenings. And yep, this was fun. Thank you so much, and hopefully all of you tune in again. So thank you. Bye bye. Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care. Good night.